We got a little Christian Kirk appreciation going on. I'll tell you why he's a very valuable member of this team, and his stats might drop this year. We'll do it all in just a second on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
She is right. It is your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of said podcast that you can also find over on YouTube. Make sure if you go over, you hit the like button. I'll say it again, hit the like button. Also subscribe, and then make sure that you hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure you tap into that location each and every day as well to make sure you don't miss an episode. Like a group of people we call the everydayers. That's what they do. And we call them that because they tap in every single day. And you can be one too. All you got to do is tap in every single day. I'll tell you today why Christian Kirk might be the fourth option, but that's not a bad thing this year, because if he's the fourth option on a team, it's likely that they are winning more than they have in the past. So we'll talk about that. He gets to go home, though, and be a full-time slot receiver. I know, if they go to 2 wide receiver sets, you have to wonder if he's going to be on the field. Yeah, he's going to be on the field. But I think he's better suited to play in the slot. Not that he can't play outside, because he can. He has already. But I think he's a better suited player for the slot, and we'll discuss that. And it's just going to be Kirk appreciation. And the reason why I thought about this today, so we can get going here today, the reason why I thought about it is some players and their contributions just get forgotten. It's easy to fall in love with all of the new parts, the new shiny parts, the different parts, like Brian Thomas Jr., as well as Gabe Davis, and because it changes the way the wide receiver room looks. It gives them players that are bigger, more physical. And now, it's just so easy to fall in love with all of that stuff instead of just focusing on the fact that over the last 2 years, Christian Kirk has averaged over 70 catches since he's been a Jacksonville Jaguar. He had 84 in 2022. He got banged up last year and missed some games, and he ended up with 57. But he was well on his way to having another 80 reception season and another 1,000-yard season. He had 1,100 yards in 2022 with 11 touchdowns. So he had 6 touchdowns last year and had 787 yards. He was headed that direction. He went down, man. It's like somebody hit him with a cattle prod or something in the Monday night game against the Bengals. Untouched, just fell down and ended up having that core issue with his groin or hernia or something like that. But all of that stuff's connected. Trust me. Don't ask me how I know. I'm just telling you, all of that stuff's connected down there. But he got hurt and got banged up, and he made a miraculous attempt. I think he actually did come back towards the end of the season, but it's just hard to qualify how valuable he has been, especially since, when they traded for him or when they signed him in free agency, the talk is that he was overpaid. 4 years, $76 million. I even thought they probably overpaid him just a little bit. But with the way these salaries have gone now with these wide receivers, oh no, he is a bargain. Trust me, to have a guy on your team making $18 million annual per, that is a bargain, especially somebody that has been that productive the way Christian Kirk has been. They were a little bit ahead of the curve when it came to getting them a real good wide receiver. Now, he may be overpaid for a guy who is primarily this year going to play in the slot. Say what you want about Trent Baalke and his history with wide receivers. What he's done here in Jacksonville, he's used some resources up on some receivers now. He signed Zay Jones too, even though Zay is now with the Arizona Cardinals. It's still just a matter of, putting the right resources with the right group of players and getting some success out of that position. So that's why I'm telling you, I think the Jaguars have improved enough that they won't have to play him outside unless it's one of those situations when they go to 2 tight ends, which is a lot because Evan Ingram is their starting tight end. He's not a real good blocker. He's a move tight end. Evan Ingram might as well be a fast tight end or a pseudo wide receiver, because that's pretty much how he plays this year. So it's going to be interesting who they take off, the combinations of the players that they put on the field when they aren't in 3 wide receiver sets, when they go to the 1 back, 2 tight end. It's just going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to have Gabe Davis out there. I believe if Brian Thomas Jr. is as good as I think he is, and they say he catches on really, really quickly, and he's not getting left behind in terms of that, being a rookie so far. And you want a guy that's that dynamic on the field as well. I like the Jaguars when they go 1 running back, 1 tight end, and have their 3 wide receivers out there with the way the personnel grouping looks now. The issue that might arise is they might lack a little bit on the blocking aspect of it, because that will give them only 5 guys or 5 people who are really at the line of scrimmage blocking. I know Gabe Davis might do a little bit of that stuff, and not saying that receivers don't block DBs, but I mean running from that set for Jacksonville might be a little bit more difficult with all 3 of those receivers on the field at one time. So that being said, Kirk has been a marvelous, marvelous addition. He's been one of the best free agent signings the Jaguars have ever had, if you ask me. I don't know where I would rank him, just thinking off the top of my head. But he's really, really lived up to, getting paid here a couple of years ago. The question is I know somebody's going to ask this question. If Parker Washington, who I see has gotten some ink lately, and I even did a show on Parker Washington a few weeks back about how improved he looked in the offseason program. If he starts to push, if he really starts to push to the point where you can't just not have him on the field at least for 15, 20 snaps a game, the question then will be, what will be the long-term answer for the Jacksonville Jaguars, considering Christian Kirk will be entering the last year of his contract after this season, and that number might be really, really high. Well, I don't want to put too much emphasis on jumping ahead of this thing, but the bottom line is you always have to think about the business aspect of it. And maybe that's why, you're starting to hear rumblings that maybe Parker Washington is doing some things and he's putting people on notice that he ain't going to be an easy guy to get rid of. In fact, he might be a dude that really makes the Jaguars put him on the field this year. And if that's the case, that might even decrease the opportunities Christian Kirk might have to put up the numbers that he's been putting up in the past. We're going to talk about those numbers too, because I really do believe that they're going to go down. They're going to go down because of all the guys I just mentioned. The fact that Trevor won't have to force the ball into Kirk anymore. Kirk has really been the most reliable receiver for Trevor Lawrence. Even last year when they had Ridley, the guy that he really relied on, and I think used to look for in critical times, I think it's Kirk. I really do. He had a couple of drops. He didn't have as many as Calvin Ridley did. He had a couple of drops in critical time, but I also think that that's just some of those balls are just within his reach, and he don't have the longest arms in the world. He's a little shorter than me, and when he reaches out for those balls, it just seems like he doesn't quite get that extension. Now, the catch radius thing is going to improve with the other guys that they have. So now I really think Kirk's going to be in a lot of situations where he's eating up the route tree, but mainly in the middle of the field. And he turns into a little bit of a punt returner when he gets the opportunity to get the ball in the middle of the field. So being the slot means something, and we're going to talk about that too. We're going to talk about the effect that putting him in his natural, what I consider his natural position in the slot. How does it help him, and how does it help the Jacksonville Jaguars? We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's right. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars. We're your team every day, and we always thank you for making us your first listen. We're talking about Christian Kirk, and we gave the numbers, the statistics for last year. I'll go back over those with you. 57 catches, 787 yards, 6 touchdowns. It's misleading because he missed some games. I think these stats were up to like week 12. I think week 12, 8-3, 8-4. That's where the Jaguars were around that time. So it's like week 12. He had about 5 more weeks. He was probably going to get close to, if not 80 catches, at least 75. But I think he's going over 1,000 yards. I think he was going over 1,000 yards again. And he's really the epitome of just not using stats to tell you the narratives of players, because he played so well for the Jaguars the last 2 years. And you know what? He's easy to like too, man. He's a real good guy. He's one of the nicest guys. A couple of blunders, and I'll tell you what they were. Talking about needing to get out of town 3 games into the season. That wasn't a good look, but you know, we give a guy, we give a guy grace and give a guy a chance. If I had to bring it up, because I brought it up before, and he was one of the dudes that said a couple of things that I thought kind of represented the losing mentality that the Jaguars need to be trying to shake for so long. But it was just one slip of the tongue, and I don't think he meant anything by it. But he's a real good guy. He works extremely hard. He's always in tip-top shape. Looks you in the eye when he talks to you. He's one of those dudes that doesn't waste a whole bunch of words. He tells you exactly what's on his mind, and I consider him one of the team leaders on the team. I really do. He's kind of a quiet guy, but when it comes to football stuff, I do consider him one of those guys that should be considered a team leader for Jacksonville. Not to mention, he's very, very tight and close with Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be even tighter because he's going to be lined up closer to the quarterback in the slot position in most of these formations, and I think that's going to benefit him. It's also going to benefit Trevor to know that one of his first looks is going to be right there, and is one of his most reliable and favorite people. And if you can get him the ball, say if you have him in the slot and you have Evan Ingram on the other side of the formation, right there where those hash marks are, he has the two guys that he'll now have those guys. These are the dudes that he throws to the most. These are the guys that are sort of his bailout people, his buddy. My coach always said, always find your buddy. When you can't find anything else, look for your buddy. Well, that's what it is. And both of those guys will represent the exact same thing. And they're both good on those little shallow crossers and finding holes in the defense. And that's where being a veteran comes in, where you find those holes in the defense and you can sit down and in the middle of the formation. Sometimes I've seen interceptions happen. Trevor had one. I can't remember who the receiver was at the time that did it, but Trevor had one where he was expecting the receiver to sit down, but the receiver kept drifting. I can't remember the game it was. And that's the kind of stuff that now you're going to have a more experienced player playing in a slot, and that won't happen. That won't happen. He won't. If you're supposed to sit, and what we're talking about here, if you're paying attention, if you just imagine you're looking at football, I'm assuming everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, so I'll just kind of break it down a little bit. If you pay attention to a defense when they're in a zone, guys are sitting in spots, right? You have to recognize that. And that's why they use pre-snap motion a lot. They usually either the tight end or the slot guy will motion. He'll go over and come back. So if you're a novice football fan, you're like, why is that dude running and then turning around and going back? What's that? Was he trying to trick people? No, what that is he's letting the quarterback know the defense and the coverage. If he runs in motion, there's two things the defense can do. If you're a man-to-man, you can follow him. Or I have seen people that play in man-to-man and they just pass him off to the next guy. But if nobody moves, then they're in a zone. If nobody moves, they're in a zone, and that tells the quarterback. It also tells the receiver, okay, so if they're playing in the zone and nobody's going to actually be following me, what I need to do to help my quarterback is to find areas in the zone that are between two defenders and do what they call sit down. Just go and stay. Don't keep moving, because when you move, the quarterback kind of has to lead you, right? And sometimes they'll lead you into a person that'll knock your block off or allow that person to play the ball. So what has to happen is you have to really, really be disciplined and sit down and don't try to help your quarterback. You're actually helping him by standing still. All right. So the importance of the slot for me is Trevor Lawrence is going to have one of his most reliable players always in help mode and always going to be in the slot, and always is actually going to be, he's going to be closer by formation, just by alignment. He's going to be actually closer to Trevor Lawrence, so he won't have to look for him as much, right? It doesn't sound like I'm telling you that this dude is going to lose some numbers, but he actually is. Why? Because I think at best, even though he's Trevor's most reliable receiver, he's going to be the fourth option on offense. I'm going to count him. In the third and final segment, I'm actually going to count those options. And I know people are saying, ain't no way he's going to be the fourth option. When I start counting them, you're going to realize he might be the fourth option. So we'll discuss that, but not before I let you know that Locked On Sports Today is the absolute truth. And if you're tired of hearing all the yelling and screaming on Fox Sports or ESPN, then all you got to do is make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm going to count all of these weapons the Jaguars have, and you tell me when the number to Christian Kirk should come up. I'll do all of that in just a second in the third segment of Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. Man, therapy is good. It has been good for me. It's been good for members of my family. And I tell my friends all the time, therapy works for everything. Time management, when you can't be everywhere you need to be for your family. How do you handle the stress of making the decisions on where to go and how to use your time wisely? I lost family members and friends in the last 12 months. I have been in grief counseling, and it has helped me tremendously to talk to professionals at BetterHelp. So stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Just visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Thank you for joining us once again here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Talking Christian Kirk, I gave you a little bit of spill about my Christian Kirk appreciation and how I think we want to make sure everybody doesn't forget about Christian Kirk this year, right? That he's going to probably be in a full-time slot. The benefits of that for him and Trevor Lawrence, mainly I talked about for Trevor Lawrence and the team. The benefit for him, he probably gets to go back to a position that is really his more natural position. We're not trying to just typecast him as a dude that can't play outside, because obviously he can. And I also am not sure that when the Jaguars go to their two wide receiver formation with two tight ends, I'm not sure he'll be off the field. So he's probably going to get a chance and an opportunity to still be on the field. It depends on the package that they have for those other guys, and it depends on how training camp goes. But I think you're going to see a full-time return inside to him, and it's going to benefit him mightily. Or I don't even know if you can call it a return, because I don't necessarily know if he played a whole bunch of slot when he was in Arizona. But I do believe that that's where people believe he is going to be most successful. Why do I think he's going to be the fourth option? All right, so let me tell you. Let me start naming them. Okay, Travis Etienne, priority, and I'm not talking about just receivers. I said offensive option. Travis Etienne is going to run and he's going to catch balls out of the backfield. Evan Ingram led the team last year with over 100 catches, so he's a priority also. All right, and a mismatch for most teams, and I think that's what the Jaguars are going to try to use him more of as a mismatch for other teams. So that would mean Kirk is probably third. But if you have the emergence of BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., and if he does what I think he's going to do, like be such a threat and such a big play guy that you can't take him off of the field, then that would mean that Christian Kirk is maybe option number 3.5, right? I'm going to tell you why there's nothing wrong with that. Because Christian Kirk at one point was the number one option on offense. Yeah, he was. He was the number one offensive option. And that's on a team that won 9 games in the regular season. When you start getting guys that were your number one options when you won 9 games to now be your third or fourth option, hopefully that means you're winning. That means that guys, it's like basketball, right? You got a guy averaging 25 points a game, but you're one of the worst teams in the league, right? You'll be better off if that dude is averaging 15 points a game and he's the third or fourth option, because now you've got better players. You get better players, that means those guys can go and slot into where they're supposed to be on a team that wins a championship. That's that old saying I always say, whenever a team wins the championship, everybody needs to look down at their feet, and that's who they are. That's kind of what I mean. It's not a slight, in my opinion, that I say that he might be the fourth option. Because if he is a fourth option, and that means options 1, 2, and 3 are successful enough to be doing whatever they're doing, that makes him the fourth option. And if you got this guy as your fourth option on offense, you might have one of the best offenses in the entire National Football League. Think about it. Think about the third receiver or the fourth option on most teams. You got to go a long way in your memory bank, man, to figure it out if you don't watch and follow these teams close enough. And most of them don't have a dude that's the fourth option who's as good as Christian Kirk. Most of them don't. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Calvin Ridley's going to be the number 2 option in Tennessee. Can he win? Can the team win when he's their second best player? That's a question that has to be answered. And I do not live in the hood, so what you hear is these people are popping off these fireworks. I don't want y'all to be thinking like, what the hell we got going on over there? Ain't anybody out here shooting. So I'm just letting you know those are fireworks if you hear the rapid banging going on. The rapid banging coming from outside the house. Yeah. But hopefully, we talked about fireworks yesterday on our show. Hopefully, Christian Kirk will be one of the reasons that you'll hear some fireworks going off and you'll hear some cannons going off down there. I just don't think he's going to get as many opportunities this year to do it. But what will happen is he'll have his games. Like Zay had his games. Remember Zay Jones? He had his games. There were times when my wife used to go crazy because Zay Jones would have like 7 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then the next week, he'll have like 3 drops. And my wife used to say, number 7 going to catch these hands when I see him. So, but you don't have those kind of issues with Christian Kirk. But there may be times when Kirk has a game where he catches 3 balls for 27 yards. One of them went for a first down. And then next week, he might have 8 catches for 95 yards and a score. So when you blend all that together, that's 5 or 6 catches a game, right? I guess my math is right. 6, it's 11, so that's 5.5. Yeah. And over the long haul, maybe he does get 60 catches this season or 65. But when you start thinking about it and you start talking about all the dudes who's going to touch the football, and we're assuming they're all going to stay healthy because we never talk about people not being healthy. We just don't do that. We don't speak things like that into existence, even though injuries are a part of it, and it makes for good team building when you have guys like Parker Washington that's like your fifth receiver. Maybe he's your fifth receiver, Devin Duvernay, whoever, fourth or fifth. When you have guys like that have played and so the room looks a little bit different. The room looks better. But the thing is there's a lot of guys that's going to touch the ball. Tank Bigsby, we talked about him earlier this week. Tank's going to get some touches as another back to spell Travis Etienne. Isn't it nice to have all of these weapons, though? That's one of the things that we can lose sight of, is that these are legitimate NFL weapons, and anybody can pop off at any point in time. It could be Evan Ingram, it could be Travis Etienne, it could be the rookie BTJ, it could be Gabe Davis, who that marvelous game with Buffalo when Tyreek Hill ran and did whatever it was he did, and then they did the 9-second deal after they got the kickoff, and the Kansas City playoff game. Go back and watch it if y'all want to see what you're getting in Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis catching the ball down the middle of the field. I just remember him catching balls backing into the end zone down the hash. He's going to catch it. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of people and a lot of hands touching that football this year. So a guy's numbers might suffer a little bit, but when the numbers suffer, as long as you're winning, it still looks like you're just fantasy football people get mad at it, and somebody even told me that. Somebody was like, man, I just don't know who I'm going to pick off the Jags for fantasy this year. Not that they ain't good. They just got too many people and it might hurt us. Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about here. You can do more with less statistics. If the team wins, you look real good as a winner. That's all I'm saying. So I'd rather catch 50 balls for a team that goes to the AFC Championship game and has a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I'd rather do that than catch 85 balls for a team that wins 9 games and might not make it in. You guys make sure you enjoy this weekend. Come Monday now, I might drop a bonus episode. I did the Peacock and Williamson show. I'm gonna show y'all just what your boy said about Trevor Lawrence when he's not home. There's one thing to talk about to come on this podcast and say good things about Trevor. No, we didn't do that, man. When we go on the road, we talk good about Trevor, even when it's not here on Locked On Jaguars. So make sure you tap into that, and we'll give you the news of the day also, or whatever else is going on in the National Football League. Till then, man, we're going to do another mailbag too, y'all, next week, because I had a lot of fun with that. People had a blast with it, and I did too. I really, really enjoyed it. You guys really showed up and showed out, because I'm sitting there trying to figure out an angle to come from. And y'all, the questions that y'all gave me were so consistent that it was actually like a little program director thread that I had. And you guys gave me. So I'm going to look forward to doing that. I ain't going to pay you. Don't ask me for no money. I ain't going to give you no money for doing that. But I'm going to look forward to y'all doing that and getting back interacting again with you guys next week. We'll do that, man. Y'all take care. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.